All right, thank you for joining us here. My name is Gabriel, and I'm a amateur at-home gardener. Although I do have a fairly, big knowledge of how to get things done in your garden. Um, Figured I'd start a little video series here to kind of show you how I do what I do, and how I show success in my garden, and also as kind of a video log of my garden as well. I have done gardening in the past, but I had let it kind of fall by the wayside, and now I'm getting back into it again, and I'd just like to show you some of the things that I do. So today we're actually going to be, I'm going to be showing you how to propagate citrus from cuttings. Now the cuttings you can take year-round, although it is definitely best to do it when there is new growth on the tree. I would recommend taking those cuttings from the bottom of the tree where you're less likely to get hardy, bark kind of growth on there. You definitely want to have green growth, and I'll show you what I'm at. Basically, what I've got here is an example of what we're going to be doing today, what we're going to be making today. And basically, what it is this is orange tree cuttings, and I'll be using a fresh cutting that I have here from a tree that I found, and how we make this into a usable cutting and tree like this by basically transplanting a piece of it. So it's a fairly easy process, but I do want to give you some information as we go along. This is the end result, so I'm going to put this aside here, and we'll go ahead and fresh start with an empty pot and a cutting. So this here, if I didn't already say, this is orange that I'm going to be working with here today. And basically what I did was I found a nice twig, and I'll try to show you up close as much as possible. The main branch of this twig, you'll see, is really only just barely starting to get a little bit of woodiness and stuff on here. It's really not focusing very well, so I apologize. But you're just starting to see a little bit of brown streaks and things like that on the main stem, which I'm actually going to wind up getting rid of all of that as much as possible, because that is going to make root growth that much harder. I'm also going to get rid of a vast majority of this foliage. The reason being is that, well, a couple of reasons. First of all, I want to keep this relatively small, so that it doesn't take much energy to keep the plant going while it's still trying to produce new roots. Additionally, I want to have as little water expiring from the plant as possible while it's sitting in its new little greenhouse home. So what I'm going to do, you'll see that this is from a plant that's outside. You'll see that some of the leaves have a few small imperfections and things like that on them. I'm going to try to avoid using those leaves as much as possible, because I want to have good quality leaves, but I'm going to wind up cutting the leaves here anyway. So here's what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to take a good pair of garden shears. You could use scissors as well. Just make sure that they're sharp. That's really the main important thing. And first thing I'm going to do is cut off all of the little side branches and things like that that I do not intend to use. This particular brand of orange, which I'm not sure exactly what type it is, unfortunately, but it does have thorns. It's actually an orange tree that's from my neighbor's yard here, and but he's always had really, really nice, flavorful, good oranges. So I'm basically quote-unquote stealing from him, but but the reality is that I'm not doing any harm to his tree, nor is it really causing any problems here. I'm just basically borrowing, I guess you could say, borrowing from his tree. With that in mind, what I'm going to do here, so you see I'm down to basically a very long stem and a couple of things at the top. I'm actually going to go further with this. I'm going to go ahead and remove all the bottom leaves. I basically want to leave only about 2 leaves up top. And I'm going to try to make that the leaves that are the best in quality, the highest up that I can. Okay. So, with that in mind, let's see where I'm at here. Well, I don't really like this one, this leaf right here, because it's got too much stuff in the area that I'm going to need it. This one, on the other hand, it has a little bit of imperfections right there, but not enough for me to really care so much. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut off the bad leaf. I'm also going to cut off this topper piece here, because that's going to cause a little bit of problems. Now, ideally, I would wind up having 2 leaves here, but you know, having 1 is actually okay. But what I'm actually going to do here, I'm going to cut off this lower one as well. So I'm going to have these 2 leaves left as my main 2 leaves. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to trim these down, like I was saying before. I'm basically going to cut these more than in half. Maybe about a third of the leaf is what I'm going to have left. Something like that, you see. And this one I'm going to leave a little bit more because of the damage to that leaf. Now I know that's not pretty. It's really not pretty, in fact. But you'll be surprised. This is going to be the best way for this this plant to be able to survive. Now, again, unfortunately, the camera quality is just not quite good enough to really show you here, but my woodiness kind of goes all the way up to about this node and then stops. And as it turns out, that's actually kind of the perfect length of plant right there. It's about, I would say, about 6 to 8 inches long. I'm going to go ahead, and it's right on a node that occurs. So I'm going to go ahead and cut right through that node on an angle. So you can kind of see what I did there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to take a knife. Okay. I'm using an X-Acto blade here. By the way, one of the things I probably should have started with is that you are essentially performing tree surgery here. So cleanliness is a factor. Definitely something that's important here, because introducing other bacteria and microbes and things like that to the plant at this point can be devastating to the process. It can cause mold to grow. It can cause rot and things like that. The oils in your hands can definitely cause a lot of problems, especially at this point here. I'm going to be removing some of the skin, some of the amateur bark from this, and when I do that, I'm going to be leaving raw wood basically at the bottom, and you really don't want to be touching that as much as you possibly can, because those oils can prohibit root growth and can contribute to rot. So you definitely want to avoid that happening. But what I am going to do is I'm basically just going to, from the next nearest node, which happens to be right about there, I'm going to make a nice, very, very shallow little incision, going back to those medical terms here, all the way around the branch, and then I'm going to make a small slit all the way down the length of it. Okay. Now I know I just said you don't want to be touching this with your hand. Unfortunately, at this point here, there's really not much of a better way of trying to just get your nail under there. You can probably use a knife like this if you're being careful, but you also run the risk of cutting too much, cutting too deep with it there. But what I'm doing is I'm basically going to peel the branch off. Okay, and it goes all the way right up to the very tip of it. It should come off pretty easily, and what you're left with is like that. Okay. Now, the other thing that you're going to need here is rooting hormone. This is basically B vitamin, for trees like this, I definitely prefer the powdered form. They do have liquid forms, but this, I think, is going to be the better option for little trees. Basically, you want to get a lot of that. I mean, you want to get as much of it as will stick on there for sure. Maybe even a little bit extra. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for just a quick moment while I prepare my pot. Okay, This is already like damp soil. I don't want it. I mean, I don't want it waterlogged either. Couple of important things: you definitely want to make sure that you're using a pot that has holes in the bottom of it. So because that's actually how we're going to wind up feeding it. Because we don't want to be taking that tent off of its little greenhouse. You want to kind of leave that in place. We're going to wind up wicking the water up into the soil from the bottom. But you want this to be a little bit damp, and I also am going to make a nice little hole. You can do this with your finger. You can do it with a chopstick or something like that, whatever you want. Basically a nice little hole for it to sit in. And then I'm going to take my cutting here with as much of that B vitamin as I can. See a nice little glob of it stuck on there. And I'm basically just going to put that down in there and fill in the soil with my hands. I do kind of want to relatively firmly press that down, not really hard, but like so that it's sturdy in there. I can move this around; it's not going to fall over. That's important. I'm also trying to keep in mind that I am going to have a plastic bag over this, so I definitely don't want the leaves to be touching that bag as much as possible if I can help it. So this is all it is for now. It's not very impressive looking, but it will be. It will take probably about a month or two for the roots to really start propagating fully and for us to start seeing some new growth. Meanwhile, what we're going to do, I'm going to take a standard plastic bag like this. I like to use I believe these are quart-sized because they're a little bit larger. And they've got a nice big opening. You definitely want to kind of measure these things out beforehand to make sure that your cup is going to fit inside of the bag that you're using. I have tried this before also with saran wrap. It is a little difficult to do with saran wrap because basically your top does not wind up staying closed, up here basically, and that can cause a bit of a problem with it drying out. Now I live in Arizona. It is very, very dry here, so I do not need extra air flowing in here whatsoever. What I would say though is that in some areas, especially if you're in an area that is more humid already, you're definitely going to want to maybe slit up the side just a little bit to let some fresh air in there. You still want it to be humid, and it's going to wind up forming condensation on this, and that's a good thing. But you're going to want to have some fresh air be able to get in there if you're definitely in a more humid area. Now, all that's left to this is basically setting it up in its feeding tray. I have a different feeding tray for this one, but just to show you again on the one that I already did how this works, I'm actually just using like a little ashtray on this one. I don't smoke for a very long time, but I still have some relics of it. This is what they come in handy for. Basically what I'm going to do, I'm not going to try to, take this bag off. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to water around the bottom of it, just like that, every couple of days. Make sure that it stays nice and moist in there. And that's all there is to it. Basically, you just got to let it sit in a sunny area. Some people can do this like on a windowsill. Unfortunately, I don't have any windowsills that I can readily access without my cats being able to access them, and my cats will destroy everything nice in this world. So I have basically set up a little seed starting and indoor growing area using fluorescent lights, and I'll show you that in a later video. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them down below. And hope this helps for all you citrus people out there. This works on any type of citrus, just for your information. But yes, happy gardening, and hope this helps somebody.